Thank you, Alex. So when I spoke to the Contagious team about giving this talk today, the brief was simple. It was really to help you in your everyday work in bringing advertising into the world to even better make the case that counterintuitive creativity can spark brand growth. Now, you may ask yourself a question: how can a researcher who doesn't create or commission advertising hope to meet that brief? Well, the answer comes from the most important people in advertising, everyday people, the people who literally often don't think about brands and advertising, but are so critical to its success. At Ipsos, we've evaluated over 200,000 video ads, measuring the experiences that people have with advertising and the sales lift and market share gains that the advertising can bring to brands. And when I started pondering the question of what creativity means in advertising and how, if at all, it can contribute to brand growth, I was really fortunate to be able to benefit from all of this data, all of these observations, and I'm really happy to be able to share some highlights of that with you today. And another group of people I look to, as the title of the book suggests, is the misfits of the world. The content creators, the innovators, the people who actively don't fit in to deliver more effective experiences for their audiences. What can we learn from these people as to how they harness creativity in entertainment into the advertising experiences we want to deliver to audiences? But before we can cover those points, I think we firstly need to recognize the problem that creativity has in advertising. And yes, it can be about processes and the world of business, but actually it's more inherently something ingrained within us as human beings. We're somewhat products of evolution. We walk around with a prediction machine inside our heads, our brains. And our brains are very good at making efficient choices, often automatically, non-consciously. And that has a benefit for us to live our daily lives, but it can also hold us back, because when we make those decisions automatically, we're referring to experiences we've already had in the past to inform our choices in the present, and it can blind us to better choices we could otherwise take. And I think if we accept that's inherently in our minds and in our DNA, it's not really a surprise to me that a lot of the advertising we see on our screens today feels very safe and familiar. I could have given many examples in this reel on screen. Auto advertising is I think, though, a good one. The beautiful scenery, the car drives down, the beautiful people in the car, the focus on technical, functional features in a two-dimensional way. It's all very familiar. It's all been seen before. Beer advertising, another culprit. The condensation on the bottle, the promise of refreshment. And I think as marketers, we all feel that it's the right thing to do because we've seen it before. We're referencing it from the past to believe it's a less risky thing to do in the choices we make in the present. And what's been the response of the advertising industry to this type of work that we see on screen here? It's been to, of course, promote the value of creativity, to be brave, to be bold, to try something different. But what I think can emerge is a tension in the language that's used to promote creativity. And some examples on screen here, using words like chaos, disturbing, and breaking things. And it's not for me as a researcher to say if this is the right or wrong language to promote the services of a creative agency, but I do think we can probably agree as an observation, it creates a tension between, on the one hand, marketers wanting some certainty under shareholder pressure in the returns on their advertising investment, and on the other hand, creative agencies saying, do something different in a very provocative, very confrontational nearly way. And there's another group of people that's missing from this whole language, missing from this debate, and of course, it's everyday people. And so we looked to see if we could alleviate that tension at Ipsos by looking to understand what everyday people think creativity means in advertising. And we asked 20,000 people around the world a very simple question. Based on creative advertising you've seen, what words or phrases come to mind? And I think visually, we just see it instantly that creativity means more than originality and difference alone. That yes, originality and difference is at the core of the responses we collected in the bottom right in the blue, but it's more so surrounded by other themes that represent the experience of advertising, having a feeling of fun, of entertainment, of joy and happiness in the yellow, an appreciation of the craft in the green, and back to the bottom right in the blue, just generally being interested in what you've seen, connecting with it in some way. And so this led me to, in the book, propose a people-first definition of creativity in advertising that's at the top of the screen, an original or different experience that adds some value for the audience. And the value can come in different forms. It can be in entertainment, or it can be in just generally finding something interesting or useful in your life. And so when I came to this definition, I asked, could we ever see this in other types of experiences that we all have, such as watching movies, listening to music, playing video games? And it's here I look to the misfits in popular culture. One of the misfits I profile is George Lucas and his work in the Star Wars movie franchise. Star Wars is one of the most successful movie franchises in history. But when you look at the box office receipts of the different films in the franchise, in percentage terms, in terms of rise and fall of box office receipts, there's actually variability. Some are more successful than others. And while I wouldn't ever claim that there can be one singular reason to describe this variance and explain it, I do think actually the experience delivered to the audience can get us towards that. And so, spoiler alert, I'm about to reveal some of the plot devices in the Star Wars movies. So if you haven't seen all the films yet, you're welcome to leave for a few minutes. So with that said, off we go. Let's return to the original movies, which should be familiar to many of you. A young person of mysterious lineage goes off on an adventure. He is offered the hand of the villain, rejects the villain's hand, and then at the end of this trilogy, the villain, in this case Darth Vader, is redeemed. So what do the prequels do in terms of delivering an audience experience? The prequels, incidentally, were quite successful for the movie studio. The box office receipts grow over time between films, therefore delivering value to the audience, value to the studio. Well, what the prequels do is they deliver something that's expected with the lightsaber duels, with the spaceship battles, but moreover, they inject originality and difference into the experience. They evolve the story, charting the rise of Anakin Skywalker from being a young boy through to an adolescent learning his skills to his inevitable downfall as Darth Vader. And it's this interaction that we see time and time again in popular culture, where you connect something that fits with something that you're interested in and is familiar to you with originality and difference to add more value. And so what of the more recent sequels? How did they deliver an audience experience? The sequels actually were less successful in box office terms. They declined film by film. And so let's look at the plot devices in the sequels. But before we do, a reminder of the originals. Young person of mysterious lineage goes on an adventure, is offered the hand of the villain rejects his hand, or he rejects the villain's hand, and the villain is redeemed. I submit, near beat for beat, the narrative in the movies and in the sequels is the same. Young person of mysterious lineage goes on an adventure, is offered the hand of the villain, rejects the villain's hand, and the villain is redeemed. And so, on the one hand, the sequels offer that familiar experience. They deliver the lightsaber duels, they deliver the spaceship battles, but moreover, they are bereft narratively of originality and difference. There is no interaction and therefore value for the audience. And it's with these signals in popular culture, and this just being one example, and these perspectives from the audience of advertising as to what creativity means in advertising, that we come back to advertising itself. So what I wanted to understand at a meta-analysis level is, what kind of experience does advertising deliver, and where, if at all, does creativity appear? And we ran an analysis that simply looked to group very specific measures of the advertising experience together, so which naturally fit together, go together. And this helped us identify 3 advertising experiences. The first is a creative experience. So a feeling that the advertising was unique, it entertained you, and it's inherently talkable. The second, creative ideas. Less about the experience itself, more about the ideas, the concepts, the values, the options presented to you, that it's something you haven't seen before. And by extension, you think the advertised brand is different. And finally, empathy and fitting in. it's less about the definition of creativity we have. If anything, it's more about what fits in with expectations, and moreover, that there's a feeling that the advertising was targeted to you. It was designed for you, it had you in mind, and it represented your world, your needs, your challenges. And it's with these three experiences in hand, I look to understand where, if at all, they connect to end advertising effects and what we can learn about the role of creativity in doing so. So just a couple of highlights here. The first is that creative experience, that entertaining an audience with a unique experience that's inherently talkable, is by far the surest way you can get to memory encoding effects. These are the effects where advertising is encoded in the mind to then give you an opportunity to influence choices and behavior. Why might that be the case? I think we've seen some good examples earlier, and one example I would refer to is for Heineken, using the character of James Bond and the actor Daniel Craig. So in this ad, Daniel Craig is consistently confused with his character of James Bond, and he cannot meet that expectation. And that evokes moments of humour and therefore entertainment. And a question I pose in the book about this campaign and others is this advertising or is it entertainment? And I would actually submit that it's both, and that's somewhat the point, that today marketers need to be as much entertainers to pay that price of admission to be encoded in the mind, as they are brand builders to, in the end, sell products and grow market share. Another key data point and insight in the book that we discovered is the role of creativity in influencing short-term choices, in influencing sales lift. What role does it have? Well, interestingly, it alone isn't enough to grow brands singularly. So you can entertain with a unique story, it can be based on a new original idea, but if you don't connect that story to the world of the people that you want to appeal to, if you don't frame it and your brand's role in their needs, their world, their challenges, you'll regress to the middle, you'll regress to the mean. But if you do both, if you entertain with something unique that's inherently talkable and frame it in their world, in something that they can relate to, something they can connect to and they are interested in, you will get a plus 20% sales lift versus average based on our sales validated metrics. And an ad I think really illustrates this relationship quite well, if it will play, is for Volvo. It takes a very different approach to the car advertising I showed earlier because, God forbid, it shows the people that Volvo want to appeal to in the advertising, in this case, new parents. And the car isn't omitted from the ad. If anything, it's somewhat a member of the family as they adapt to their new world. And safety features of the car are shown, but they're not shown in a two-dimensional abstract way. They're shown in how the ad, the feature that is, can really impact people's lives. And it's really, with this ad and this data point, I'd like to leave you with a really key concluding thought, that in the end, I submit, creativity is about a mindset shift. It's a mindset shift from developing advertising to sell products to consumers to actually delivering a positive experience to audiences. And if you have that, even just that implicit, that small mindset shift, the evidence confirms that more often than not, advertising that is original, that connects with people, framed in their world, will help you grow sales and market share. And also, something else to leave you with, if you ever feel safe in the advertising that you're delivering, if you don't feel uncomfortable, that, to my mind, would be one of the biggest risks that you could take with your brands. So I'd like to thank you for your attention listening to this talk. If you'd like to find out more information about the book, you can scan the QR code on screen. My email is also on the screen as well. I'll be around for any questions. And I do hope, coming back to the purpose of this talk, that even these few highlights from the book can help you have more confidence to make that case for counterintuitive creativity to spark your brand growth. Thank you very much.